Welcome to another edition of Who Got the Keys? Well, we are.
Unlocking doors to generational wealth.
All right, I am Donna,
And I am Mac.
and we are representing our legacy, the Rogers family, brother and sister. He works my nerves, but we are
You
here
just
to
throw a shot at
empower
you.
others.
You just threw a shot at me very early.
Shots fired.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
get
So
it.
so anyway, before I was attacked, this podcast today is one of my favorite topics. We're going to be talking about how to get your finances in order, whether that be a business, getting into real estate, and buying your first home, etc. And today I'm excited because I plan on poking the bear, right? So I plan on doing some breakdown with my co-host Donna today and talking about finances. So Donna, are you ready for this?
I guess.
Okay. So let's talk about this first. So do you consider yourself more of a saver or a spender? And before you answer that question, I ask that because, I'm married, so we both are different. I have different business partners in different industries, and we're both different, but we're kind of evenly yoked. So let's let our viewers know, what's your background? Saver or spender? One word answer. One word answer.
It depends on what it is.
Oh, here we go.
Sorry, ladies, we are detail, right?
And that's the problem. That's the
Yes,
problem.
it's not a problem. It just makes us different. It depends on what it is.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Can you
If it's
explain?
something that I really want, I will spend money that some people may think is too much. But if it's something that I'm not really passionate about, then I tend to kind of be more on the cheap side. I gotta save my money.
So if you have to pick one,
No,
are you a saver or a spender?
it depends.
Okay. Next question. So, for myself in general, right? I'm a spender, right? I'm a spender. I don't believe in saving as much, right? Right. And I'm gonna go into detail, right? Especially right now, we're talking now. We're headed towards the new year. It's 2022, and we're completely screwed.
23.
It's 23 to we're completely screwed with how the market is set up today, right? And I say that because inflation is so high. I think it's about 6-7% now. Don't quote me on that. But what happens is when you're saving, your money is burning. It's burning in your account. So a dollar today is not worth a dollar tomorrow. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Right. So if you're saving money, you're actually losing. But I asked that question initially to jump into, you know, when it comes to, like you say, you like certain things you like to buy, right? So these very expensive. My sister like designer. I don't let her and my wife hang out when it comes to shopping. I've seen them. I call it
ASOS.
tearing down the mall. They spend thousands of dollars at the mall, right? Like I get ashamed and they're just happy walking around the mall spending money, and I'm just like, what the hell have I done? Um, but when it comes to budgeting, who taught you how to budget?
Life.
Life, really interesting. What do you mean?
There was a point where I remember I was fresh out of college, I believe, and so the reality, we grew up where the older siblings grew up. When you turn 18, you had to make a decision. You're gonna go away to school, or you're gonna move out the parents' house. However, let me put this disclaimer there. Our parents own
Did
property.
you move out or did you get put out?
No, our parents
I just
own
wanted.
multi-unit properties, and so even if you had to move out the home, there was an apartment waiting for you. So it wasn't like you just move out anywhere. They had buildings that we had the option to live in, and it was like $100 rent. It was very minimum rent. So let
Oh,
me
I didn't know you guys were paying that cheap. I feel like
yeah, it was very, very low rent that we had the option to live in. But anyway, when I got to that stage in life and realized that I had to grow up, and I actually had a job, I had a full-time job, and so I just was spending money. And I was taking my friends out. I remember I just love hosting dinner and all these different type of things. And so even though I
I
was
did get
paying my
interview
bills,
privileges when I was
I was spent. He got more privileges. The younger they get more
didn't take me out to
privileges.
dinner, but okay.
And so hard times came and I wasn't prepared for them. And it taught me a lot about the importance of saving because I did not have a backup plan myself through those hard times in life. And so I do remember, just not to go too far ahead of you, but I do remember at a point I lost everything. And when you lose everything, and I mean everything, I lost properties. I remember coming out and my car was repoed. I lost everything. And that would teach you how to live more strategically and more wisely when it comes to your finances.
So, do you think that you should have been taught budgeting at an early age?
I definitely think that. And so, though we were exposed to entrepreneurship and we were exposed to invest in real estate, I don't recall anyone sitting me down and saying, hey, this is how you, or in school, saying this is how you manage your money. So, absolutely.
So, what age do you think is a good age to expose children to budgeting?
At the point where they understand how to count money. So
Count
once you
count money.
understand how to count money, because you can't budget something when you don't even understand it being money. Once you understand that, so I would say, for the most part, it should definitely be a part of the high school curriculum.
Well, like I mentioned before, I've worked in educational school system, K through 12. Kids learn how to count money in fifth, sixth grade. So if you're talking about budgeting from counting money in fifth, sixth grade, I 100% agree with that analogy. I think that's a perfect time to try to expose them and start planting seeds, right? So, and that leads me to the next thing. So for me,
Wait, Malcolm. So you answer the question.
yeah, well, I'm
When
asking the
did you
question.
learn how to
Bump your
budget?
brakes, bump your brakes. Okay? Okay? I'm poking the bear. You're not poking me. Okay. So when it comes to budgeting, for myself, I actually didn't learn how to budget until I met my wife, right? So my wife actually, I'm just like you, Donna. We didn't learn how to budget. Nobody taught us how to budget. Most of the money I had when I was younger actually came from refund checks from loans. So I thought I was rich around that time, right? Even though I worked and had money, I did not use that money for the right reasons, right? So I was just spending college money, just coming and flowing. I'm spending it. Even when I got a job, my first real job, I'm just spending money because you didn't have real responsibility when you came out of school. Most people came out of school and they actually went back home, right? Most people didn't have to get their own places directly out of school. Their parents let them come back home for a little while. So I happened to meet my wife, who actually works in the banking industry, is in a mortgage underwriter. And when I met her, she taught me how to budget, even though I don't use it frequently because I'm more of a spender and I'm more of a, hey, let's make some money, right? The more money we make, the more money you can save. That's our equal balance. But she really has, to me, a great way of spending where she treats herself like the bank, right? And I'll talk about that a little bit later in this podcast. But I want to ask another question. I want to poke the bear a little bit more, right? So you said you didn't learn how to budget money until you ran into financial hardship. But let's talk about credit. When did you learn about credit and the importance of it?
So I learned about budgeting. That was in my 20s. And I learned about credit in my late 30s. Now I knew about it from a
Wow.
distance, from a far off uh, arm's distance, but to really understand credits, I don't even think that I understood the range 300 to the 850 range until my late 30s. Like, honestly, you know about credit. You got to have a certain credit score. You don't pay your stuff late, different things like that. But really understanding the details of credit, how credit works, and different things like that is really not until my late 30s. And by that time, I was already invested in real estate. And so I always had a decent score. And I always made, not always, but for the most part of my life, made a decent amount of money to get approved for things. But to really understand credit, nope, it was not until I wanted to take my profession to the next level and help others with real estate that I really started to better understand credit.
Really, I didn't know that. So that was like a couple years ago. You really started to really dabble into saying, let me understand credit better, so put yourself in a better position.
I would say within, so y'all, I'm 40. I would say within the last 5 years.
I'll say this too. I actually think for your generation older, I think that's typical.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I think
That was
it's more knowledge and information out there today for my generation and younger generations to understand more the importance of it. Now, for me, I can't remember exactly when I knew the importance of credit. It was before I ran into my financial hardships. I'm like Donna. I almost ran into bankruptcy. I faced bankruptcy, stared it in the face at a certain point. Actually, when I ran my business, right? Started off, we didn't know what we were doing. My partner at the time didn't have the best credit score, and what it led us to is I took on a lot of financial burden, and it actually put me in a situation where I couldn't handle it. But as far as credit in general, I'll say probably my late 20s. I think for men in my generation, once we get to about 26, 27, we started to look at life differently. We started to really want to say, okay, let me get my finances in order. I've partied for all this time. And if your circle is not talking about, credit around that age, then you might be in the wrong circle, right? So it took me a while to kind of understand credit. I remember I hired a credit guy to fix my credit, and he didn't even fix it.
Yeah, I did that too. It didn't work.
All these credit people out there to fix stuff, and I'm a self learner. When you can't do something for me, and I feel like it's too simple for me to pay you for, I just figured it out myself.
Yeah,
and I
that's a
ended up fixing
John
my own
Rogers
credit.
thing.
Yeah, so, but I think it's interesting, right? I don't know if it's a cultural thing or generational things. We talk about generational wealth being education, right? And I think not teaching your children about credit or budgeting at an early age is kind of setting them up for failure. And I say this because of this. I remember having a conversation with my best friend, Anton, and we would have conversations and we would be pissed. Man, why didn't our parents teach us about money and credit at an earlier age? I feel like I'm behind. I went through a lot of life saying I'm behind, but it took me to a point to say, you get to the point in life when you realize your parents took you as far as they could go, but it's higher than where their parents took them. So that's where
Exactly.
the bridge builder portion of your life comes from, right? It's lifting as you climb. I've taken you here, Malcolm. This is my ceiling. I need you to take it to another level.
Exactly.
But I remember those conversations vividly. We were pissed. Man, we're looking at bankruptcy, things like that, et cetera. So very interesting to me. So back to budgeting, right? So you went through financial hardships. Did those hardships force you to start budgeting in your personal life as well as your business life? Or how did you attack those, them financially tough situations?
For me, it had to start first personally because what you do personally spills over into your business, generally speaking. And so I just had to get it together. And like you said, I think it's a trait that we learned from our dad. We are self-initiators. We figure stuff out, right? And so I just had to educate myself. It wasn't podcasts, it wasn't YouTube, it wasn't social media available with all that educational information, right? I had to physically go sit in classes at non-for-profit organizations, have some conversations with people who specialize in that field and that entity of financial literacy. And I just had to sit down and teach myself what I needed to learn and needed to do to make better decisions. And let me give this caveat because I'm a Christian, right? And so a lot of times Christians will feel like they don't have to do the work and God would just hocus pocus figure it out and it'll just happen. No, you have to have faith and you have to do the work. I was not doing the work. I had faith. I was paying the tithes, but life still be lifing.
You putting out a lot of unbiased opinions right
I'm
now.
just saying life will be lifing. I've been there because I've been there with the hocus pocus and God is good and God will provide, but you have to manage it. I was not a good steward over what I was blessed with.
So are you saying you have to put yourself in position to receive these blessings?
Yes, and maintain them.
So you have to do the work. So it doesn't just come from prayer.
No, you have to maintain it. No one is going to maintain it for you. You will find a lot of people who will take advantage of it. You won't have it available anymore. But you have to sit down and look at what you are bringing in and what you are spending and know what the difference is. And I don't want to go too far ahead of you, or what your needs are versus what your wants. And I spent too much time spending money on my wants that my needs did not become a priority. And so I had to do a priority shift.
So let's talk about the budget. Let's continue to poke this bear. So you're you're an entrepreneur, right? You do a lot of real estate deals and things of that nature, and you have a creative way in how you manage your personal financing. I want these people to be educated and to know what that looks like, right? So personally, how do you budget? Is it a certain percentage that you're putting to the side for certain things, or are you using Excel? Is it an app you're using? What are you doing? And I ask that because my wife, she's like the notebook lady, right? Every time she gets paid, she has a notebook. She writes down all of the bills, and she basically breaks that down versus her check, and this is what she does, right? And one of the creative things that she does, which is interesting to me, I don't know if she learned this from the bank industry, but she's worked for a lot of Fortune 500 banks, is that she actually budgets for play money, right? I've seen her do things to me, and I look at her like she's a species. And I'm like, damn, this lady just budgeted for gas for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And if it gets to the point that she doesn't have any more money in the gas, she doesn't go anywhere. I'm like, hey, damn. So guess who's driving? It's me. Now I'm over my budget, right? And for me, I'm like, if I make the money, I'm spending the money. But how detailed and disciplined she is with that money is just so impressive to me. She even does things which I think everybody should do when it comes to saving. She saves a certain amount of money, and if she wants to buy something, she will budget to buy that thing. But if she can't, or something in life just just happens. She will go on her savings, pay for what she wants or what she needs at the time, and then she will repay herself back in her savings like it's a 401k with interest. She is her own bank, right? So back to you, Don. I'm sorry I went on a spiel, but I want our
No,
viewers
that
to
was
know
good
that
stuff for the
these are
people.
different things that I've seen to be successful from people who work and are wealthy. So when it comes to you, right, we didn't learn how to budget credit. Today, how are you budgeting your finances as a self-employed individual?
Thank you for making that point. So again, life be lifing. And when I lost everything, again, my property, my house at the time, the building, um, my cars, and all my savings was gone. I didn't have much savings then, but at that point, I was working government jobs, and so I had savings that I pulled from there. Since then, because I am self-employed, I don't live month to month. I'm blessed where I'm not living week to week, paycheck to paycheck, but I generally try to live months out. And so mortgages for me at a minimum are paid 2, if not 3 or more months in advance because I'm self-employed. For the most part, I live off commission. For the most part, I live off if someone's calling me in for a speaking engagement or a teaching engagement, if someone purchased my books or my products or my services. And so I can't afford to live week by week or month by month because you don't know what exactly is coming in and coming out. And so I had to learn to pivot the way that I live. And I'm still, for the most part, comfortable with that because things are paid up in advance in addition to having a savings account. So, yes, I do my 10% tie. Again, love Jesus, believe in the word, but I also put aside 10% of savings. And then I don't get into any of my wants until certain fixed bills when it comes to mortgages. Right now, I don't have a car note, but when I did have a car note, those bills are paid months in advance. So, God forbid, if anything happens in life, then everything is not just falling apart immediately. I give myself a cushion to get back on my feet. And so, for me, that's basically how I live. I live where my fixed bills, again, are paid months in advance as much as possible.
What do you say for the people who don't generate enough income to pay their bills in advance? What advice do you have for them?
So I would say this. First of all, be real with yourself. When I was raggedy with my bills, I would just stuff them in a drawer, not even open them,
Oh, wow.
and just,
I wonder why you had all that trash.
that was just whatever. That was just my truth. It wasn't important to me. It'll get taken care of when it gets taken care of. It was a mentality. Everything is a mentality before it's a reality. And so I teach my young people that when we make affirmations, it's a mentality first. And so I had to change my mentality. And so the first thing is step out of your fear because a lot of times you are fearful of the unknown. A lot of people think certain things cannot be accomplished because they're too far behind. You have to first make a decision that I want to do better and I'm willing to do the work. That's first. Now, once you make that decision, then I need to seek out the resources and the information to help me change my mindset. What do I need to do? And so, again, there's so much information available on the internet today. If free information, you should seek after that information and sit down and pay attention because, I'm a professor, and a lot of times I see people on their phone and multitasking. When you're trying to change your mindset, and you need to have undivided attention and show that you're serious to yourself, right? Now, the next step is getting into how much are you actually bringing in? How much are you actually spending? And the different sources of the revenue, the different sources of what the expenses are, and see what the difference is from there. And if you find yourself in a negative, then you need to go back and identify the needs versus the wants. Where can you make the adjustments? That's just basic budgeting 101.
Man, I think those nuggets you hit on were very key, right? So I'm gonna add to that, right? Because I've been in $60,000 worth of debt and got myself out of it, and it came from me budgeting. And remember, I'm not a budgeter at all, but I was forced to budget because I was staring down bankruptcy. I still remember it today. I remember getting up in the mornings and running, right? I'm running. My wife think I'm working out, and I'm actually out there, a face full of tears, trying to figure out how to explain to my wife I ain't got the money to go on this trip or this dinner date, things of that nature, things that she'll discover during this podcast that she probably doesn't even know, right? Hey, so might have to edit that out, but hey, we'll keep
D.
it. Uh, So one of the things I did was a couple of things I learned from her and things I learned from generational wealth. It got passed down to me, different things, and I'll go through these in bullet points. Number one, I learned to start checking my account every day, right? Especially right now because there's so many subscription-based things that we sign up for,
Yes.
free trials, things of that nature
Yes.
that basically are stealing our money,
Yes.
right? Number two, what I did was not only created a budget for every pay period to understand what money was coming out. I'm a strong advocate of if I work a job, I should be able to pay all of my bills with one check, right? If I'm not making enough money off that one check, either it's two things. Either I need to get another job or I need to request to make more money, right? So I had to put myself in position to make more money, whether that be education or whether I had two jobs. I've worked as an entrepreneur and worked a real job for about 9 years, right? Before I just said, hey, I'm gonna just go ahead and do the entrepreneur thing when COVID hit, and it blew my business up, right? My business grew substantially. Number three, creating a budget is not the only thing you need to do. You actually need to create, and I do this in Excel. Very simple. If you don't know how to do it, you can ask somebody how to do it. You need to create a document that actually shows you cash flow. You need to start projecting how much money you will have 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the road, so you know when you're overspending. This really helped me personally, and it really helped me business-wise. If I didn't have projections of how much money I was making, I didn't know where my shortfall was at, right? So in order to make money, you have to spend money, whether it be education, advertisement, marketing, things of that nature. So that helps you budget, right? And then last but not least, the thing that I really had to do was I had to be honest with myself. Hey, I had to conversate, Malcolm, you're fucking up. You can't do this. And I was dating I wasn't married at the time. I had to be honest with myself and say, you have to cut back on some of these, expenses because you just kind of spend, thoughtlessly. You're just spending money. You're buying things. You're being young is what somebody told me one time. Malcolm, you're being young.
And that's true.
So, and it's key, right? You said something I want to hit on. There's so many resources out there nowadays, but you don't have to face a lot of these things. Personal wise, it is a lot of, and I want to be careful with this. Going to YouTube, trying to figure out that doesn't work for everybody. In order to really budget and be successful with budgeting, somebody has to understand your specific financial situation, right? You also need to have a relationship with your bank and the people who you do credit cards with, right? They should understand and know when you're calling in and you're having some hardships paying credit cards off. And this is key, right? Didn't plan on talking about this, but right now is very key because the interest rates on credit cards are just absurd.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When they raise the interest rates for the economy, the main thing that's getting affected is the credit card interest rate. It's just jumping and jumping. I got a buddy right now that just told me last week that he has no money. He has a good job, it's crazy, but every month he's paying $2,000 in credit card bills.
Oh, wow.
So he's not able to save. So he's looking at bankruptcy right now, which may be the better option. Something you need to educate yourself on. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too much. But those key things with budgeting will really help you be successful. And the last word that I want to leave you guys with is discipline. You have to be disciplined in order to dig yourself out of that hole, right? But it does take focus, discipline and focus. Now, Donna, let's say this, right? We talked about credit a little bit. Has credit ever slowed you down from opportunity?
Yes. And just being super transparent, I lost my first property after having it I had it for 12 years. And again, life happens. I had a lot of contracts that ended. I didn't pick up new contracts. And this particular building, I was giving away half of it to homeless youth. And so I thought because I was doing this good deed.
I remember that era.
Yes, it was called House of Prima Donnas. And so you all for years, starting 2010, actually before that, I was giving away free housing to homeless young ladies. It's a whole story with that we could talk about another day. And so I thought because it was a good deed, there's no way I could lose this home. But life happens, right? And it was a blessing in disguise. But because I lost that home to a deed in lieu, that's basically to prevent foreclosure, that you voluntarily give the property back to the bank and they actually give you what they call keys for cash as long as you leave the property in good condition and clean it out, X, Y, and Z. And so I had that on my credit. Now, when I was ready, it was a total setback for me, and it definitely hurt my pride and my ego because, hey, I was this businesswoman. I hadn't worked for other people. I had real estate. I was young, but life happens. And so from that, I could not buy another property 4 or 5 years under my name.
Wow.
At that point, my credit score had went back up to a 700. I was making six figures, but I could not buy a property in my name because of that deed in lieu. And so certain loans, you have a waiting period that regardless of what the situation is, they would not allow you to buy a property in your personal name. Now I can, do partnerships with other people. My name couldn't even be on stuff. Just because of that deed in lieu that was on my credit. So credit is very important, and we'll have a segment that's all about credit, but that will make you sit and learn about the importance of credit. I was making six figures, had a 700 credit score, but I could not buy property in my own name because of that deed in lieu that was on my credit.
So let's ask the unbiased question, right? Because you keep bringing up cash and credit. Cash and credit. It keeps coming up in everything that you talk about that helped you get to where you are today, right? And this is an unbiased question. Unbiased question.
Okay.
Is cash more important than credit?
I think they're equal.
You think they're equal? Which one would you rather have more of?
It would be cash for me.
Why is that?
Because if I had enough cash, even though I could not get things from I couldn't get a property, but I can negotiate some deals just
Slightly
because
smiling. I'm like,
just because I had a certain amount of cash. I had a good amount of savings, but it wasn't to the point where it needed to be for the type of property that I was trying to invest in by myself during that time. So for me, cash is king.
which one is easier to obtain?
I would say credit.
Credit is easier to obtain.
It is.
Wow. So I think we have different opinions on this, right?
Okay.
It's kind of similar, right? So I'm a cash is king guy too. Cash is king, absolutely. But I've known and I know a lot of, millionaires, right? People who went out of business during the recession who I'm able to talk to. And they have 100% unanimously told me, thing can go to shit, Malcolm, keep all your cash. You can always rebuild your credit. It's easier to get cash than credit, right? So with that mentality, I go into life with that every day. I'd rather have my money just like you because I can actually pay to get credit. And most people don't realize that.
True.
I can take my money, $5,000, $500, $10,000 and say, hey, Bank of America, Chase, give me a secure credit card. I'll build my own credit, right? So I'm a huge fan of, it's easier to generate cash than credit because everybody thinks they have the recipe, but nobody showed me a real playbook on how this credit thing is built. And it's more than 3 credit bureaus out there. Most people don't know that. So
Those are just the main ones.
yeah, those are just the household names, right? All right. So I think we kind of differ on that, right? Credit gets you what you want in the long run, but if I can have cash today, I'll take my cash today, especially in this crazy economy.
Well, I'll take my cash, but I do still think that credit is easier to build quickly because you can be a person making $20,000, $30,000 and have a high credit score, but not have cash just yet. It can get you access to some cash, but again, that's building up your credit first. So we both agree that cash is king, but I do think that it's easier to build up your credit than it is to get the cash.
And I'll say this, I'm a cash is king, but I'm actually more so of cash flow is king, right?
That's true.
If I just got cash and it's sitting there, like I explained earlier,
Absolutely.
it's
That's a
burning. I'm
great
not
point.
using it. You have to have enough cash flow
That's true.
to be able to make money, right? Cash in is more than cash out, and that's why what budgeting comes into play. So with that being said, I definitely want to wrap up this series of Who Got the Keys. We talked about today unlocking the doors to generational wealth.
Yes.
We talked about budgeting 101. I'm excited to see you guys on next episode. So with that said, Donna, you take us out.
Yes, make sure you follow us on our social media pages at whogotthekeys.com. Check us out on our website. Do not forget, we have a special scholarship in honor of our dad, John P. Rogers, the real estate scholarship. You can check it out on any of our websites. And you can purchase our books for more information on real estate and business. I am the proud author, along with his teen daughter, my goddaughter, Mia, on Who Got the Keys, Building Generational Wealth Through Real Estate. Malcolm, tell the people about your book.
Don't forget to go and check out the book, The Foolish Entrepreneur, for all you ambitious, self-employed individuals out there. These books give you a lot of nuggets.
Yes, and so you can find both books on Amazon or whogotthekeys.com or Our Legacy Academy. Thank you so much for your time. We look forward to seeing you the next time on another episode of
Who got the keys?
Who Got the Keys? Who Got the Keys?